Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are outsmarting smart shapes again. We are going to be looking at the settings for both the glissando and the tab slide in the smart shape toolbox here. So let's go to our smart shapes, and actually let me zoom in the file a little bit so we can see. I've got some glissando and tab slide set up. And first thing we're going to look at is smart shape placement. Now, we talked about this placement for slurs in a previous video, but if you pull down this menu, you have options for tab slide, glissando, and guitar bend. And let's actually start with glissando. And unlike the slur, you'll notice that the glissando only has one scenario. There's only one start and end position that you can have for the glissando line, and it doesn't matter whether the stems go up or down, or if the notes are on a line or a space. It's all the same for the glissando. And just like the slurs, we have a start point horizontal, vertical, and end point horizontal and vertical. And the difference between this and the slurs is sort of the 0 point. Let's talk about where the 0 point is. So if we set all of these markings to 0, all these settings to 0, you'll kind of get a sense of where the 0 point is. It's actually, for the start point, it's on the right edge in the horizontal, in the right to left adjustment, and on the end point, it's on the left edge of the note head. And for the vertical, it's splitting the center of the note head. That's the 0 points for the start and end, right? So if we take our start point horizontal, again, it's it's set to the right edge, and we added a value here, 0.2. You'll see it go way off to the right. Maybe even 0.05 would be better, right? Oops, 0.05, there you go. And if we take the vertical and make that 0.05, you'll see it go up. So again, higher positive values will go up for the vertical. Negative numbers will go down if we make that a negative, below the center line. Positive horizontals will go right, and negative horizontals will go left of the edge. So, making a negative start point is probably not a good idea. Making a positive end point is probably not a good idea too, because that would put it to the right of the left edge, right? And of course, as always, we can just hit the reset, and that will go back to the preset values that Finale has for this glissando line. All right. So for some reason that you think that your glissando is getting a little bit too close to your note heads, you can actually increase the positive value of the horizontal in the start and increase the negative value of the endpoint horizontal to get them a little bit squeezed in. In fact, if I do that real quick, let's make this 0.06, and let's make this 0.05, and you'll see the result in the score. The glissandos will get a little bit shorter overall and a little bit farther away from the note heads, right? And of course, one more time, we can just go back and reset it, and we're good to go. All right, so that's the positioning for the glissando, fairly simple. Tab slides is a little bit more complicated because there are more scenarios for tab slides. So if we go back here and choose tab slides, you'll see that there's actually 8 different scenarios for the tab slides. And these have to do with whether or not the note head is on a line in the staff or if it's on a space in the staff, and whether or not the tab slide is going from bottom to top, or pitch increasing as it calls it, or pitch decreasing. Again, so you have line to line pitch increasing, space to space increasing, line to line decreasing, space to space decreasing. And then there's 4 more that's actually has to do with when the notes are on the same line or space and whether the pitch is increasing or decreasing. Because in certain scenarios, you can have, as you see over here, G to G sharp, which is on the same staff line, but the pitch increases, right? So Finale gives us an extra 4 scenarios to handle this, so that the line still stays on an angle to indicate the direction of the pitch, right? Which is kind of handy. And again, there's different ones for when they're both on a line, when they're both on a space, and increasing and decreasing. And then there's one final one for when the pitch remains the same and you get a horizontal line. And I actually wish there was one more so that we could delineate the difference between a space and a staff line in this scenario, because as it sits, the vertical for this placement is exactly center with a pitch, but if these notes were on a line, that line would actually go right over top of the staff line and you wouldn't be able to see it. So there should be one more here, but Finale only gives us one, and this applies to both scenarios of either being on a space or a line within the staff, right? And then just talking about the 0 points. So for the first 4 options with the when you're going from different notes, you're going from line to line, the start and end point works exactly the same as the glissando in terms of where the 0 point is. So it's the the outer edge, the right edge for the start point, the left edge for the end point, and then the center line for the vertical, right? So that applies to these 4 different scenarios. And incidentally, if you're going from, this is interesting. So if you're going from a line to a space, there's not a specific scenario for that, but what Finale does is it if you're going from like G to C instead of G to B, Finale will take the starting point that's set up here in this scenario because it's on a line, and then take the end point positioning here, right? If that makes sense. So if you're going from G to C, the positioning points are this one and then this one. All right, it's a little confusing, but it sort of makes sense. And so again, the 0 points are pretty much the same as the gliss for those first 4 scenarios. The 0 point changes a little bit for these where the notes are on the same line or space. The horizontal 0 points are the same, which means that it's the right edge of the start note and the left edge of the end note. However, the vertical 0 point is different, as you can see here. They're both set to 0, and you can see the line is on an angle. So what Finale is doing is, in this particular case, the 0 point is the bottom edge of the note head on the starting note and the top edge of the note head on the ending note, right? So we can see the result of this. If I actually put a little negative number in here, negative 0.05, you'll see this beginning point actually go below the note head, just like that. Same thing here. If we put a positive number here, not that big, positive 0.5, you'll see it go above the top edge, just like that, right? So the 0 point is a slightly different for the second 4 set of scenarios where you're dealing with tab slides on the same line or space in the staff, right? All right, so that's the adjustments you can make. And then as far as the last one, this is similar to the other ones, to the first ones, where the 0 point is the center line. The vertical 0 point is the center line of the pitch itself, which is why you see 0 here, and it's right in the center. All right. So that's sort of the placement options for the tab slide. Now, one thing to know about the placement of glissando and tab slides is that Finale, unfortunately, never calculates other elements besides the note head. So you can see in this situation, I have the glissando set up here, and they're basically crossing through these accidentals. It's sort of ignoring these augmentation dots right here. Finale just hasn't gotten these particular elements smart enough to avoid those situations. So whenever you have accidentals at the end of a glissando, you're always going to have to manually pull that a little bit left. And with augmentation dots as well, you're probably going to have to make some sort of adjustment. Particularly this one you can see is just right over top of it. So just be aware of using glissando and tab slides with accidentals. You can see the problems here. The tab slide goes right through the accidental here. So you're always going to have to pull them a little bit left, or a little bit right if you have an augmentation dot. All right, so there will always be some manual adjustment. The one interesting thing I figured out, though, is that, there's 4 separate scenarios for those tab slides where the notes are on the same staff line or space. And I was thinking about this. There's never an instance where that would result in the second pitch not having an accidental, right? No matter what, that second pitch is going to have an accidental if the pitch is increasing or decreasing, right? So again, G to G sharp, A to A sharp, B to B flat, A to A flat. There's always going to be that accidental. So why not just take those 4 particular situations and change the endpoint? Because 99% of the time, actually, I guess if it's crossing a bar line, maybe that note wouldn't have the second note wouldn't have an accidental, but 99% of the times it's going to have an accidental. So if we change the endpoint for all of these 4 scenarios to, I think the number I figured out was negative 0.14, negative 0.14, negative 0.14, and negative 0.14. For these scenarios, you'll at least avoid the accidentals for those very specific situations. Again, it won't change the ones, well, I kind of already fixed these, but let me reinsert them. It won't change the ones where the notes are on different lines or spaces, right? It will only change the scenario where the notes are on the same line or space, which is, I guess 30% helpful, 30% more helpful. So if you want, you can do that. It's kind of a little tip I figured out by accident. And then finally, other things that it will not really handle very well is things, when you have situations like semi-clustered chords here and you have tab slides or glissandos on all of the notes, it doesn't always work out exactly well. You can see in this left hand here that it looks like the 2 tab slides just get drawn right over top of each other. So sometimes you do have to make some adjustments manually to kind of get these things out of the way, and because the algorithm is not perfect for drawing these things, but it is what it is, and so you fix it. Same with the glissando, and actually in the second one here, you can see it just sort of looks like they're on top of each other, so you do have to kind of move that up a little bit and move that one to the right a little bit, and to make it look a little prettier. So all right, so that's just the trick with it, is that they're not very smart. They get in the way of a lot of things, but that's just the nature of it. And besides the placement, there's a few options that's available to us for the look of the glissando and the tab slides. Let me just show you what those are. If we go to Smart Shape Options, and we're concerned with the smart lines, and we have 4 options for the smart lines: glissando, tab slide, custom line, and guitar bend. So the glissando, I think I've discussed this, but when you have the glissando checked, you have the option of checking, of selecting a different line to use as the default for the glissando tool. So we know that we can select the glissando without the text for that tool, and then whenever we use the glissando tool, it will put in a glissando without the text, right? So that's available to us as well. And theoretically, we could actually choose any line out of this smart line selection dialog box to assign to that particular glissando tool. In fact, if you wanted a glissando that had a different text, maybe you're writing it in a different language or something, you could duplicate this and then just change the text and then use that for your glissando line. Same thing applies for the tab slide. In fact, we have the second one, which is just a plain line, but if we choose this third one, which that is actually the guitar bend line, this is the line that they use for the guitar bend, you could have a tab slide that has an arrow at the end. I'll just zoom in a little bit. You can see that with the arrow. All right, and so that's how you would do that. So other than that, there's not a whole lot you can do. All of the settings for these lines are within the Smart Line Selection editing Smart Line Designer box. So we can change the tab slide thickness. This is how we'd have to do it. If we thought it needed to be a little thicker, we'd actually have to go in here and change this thickness for this plain line right here. All right. And one handy thing that I thought I'd show you, because this might come up, is that you may want a tab slide that has the text Portamento on it, right? That's a fairly common thing to see. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. So choose tab slide, press select, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to duplicate the glissando line here, and we'll add it to the bottom, and I'm going to edit that. And instead of using the character for the wavy line, we're just going to choose a solid line, and we want that line thickness to match the normal tab slide, so it's 0.00765 is the value for that. And then the only other thing we need to change is the text, right? And to change the text for the from glissando to Portamento, we're dealing with a center full text and the center abbreviation text, right? And the position is all set for us. So just choose center full text edit, and we get the edit text box, and we can just change glissando to Portamento. And then we do have to change the center abbreviation. Otherwise, we'd get Gliss as the abbreviation, which is not correct. Port. And we have an abbreviation for that now. All right, and then just click OK. And now we've got our new Portamento line, and I'm going to select that to apply it to the tab slide tool. All right, this is what we're doing here. Number 45 is set to the tab slide. OK. And now I have the tabs tool selected. We can add that tab line and get the Portamento instead of the plain line. And it will abbreviate if it's a little bit shorter, and then if it's even shorter still, it won't even put the text there at all. All right, so that's the quick way to do a line, a Portamento line like that. All right, and you can do any line actually if you have a different type of technique that would be handy to put in that manner. You could change that text to whatever you want. And so that's it. That's basically the glissando and the tab slide line. Hopefully this has been helpful. And come back. I think the next video we're going to deal with the bend hat and the guitar bend options and all that stuff. So a lot to do on that one. All right, so thanks for watching. I appreciate you coming back to Conquering Finale, and I'll see you on the next one.